People who have won a win-a-day date with a celebrity competition. How was it? Back when the Spice Girls were big in the early 2000s, they were in town for a concert. A local radio station was doing a contest where you call in to win breakfast with the Spice Girls. I was a young teenage boy back then, who was at home sick from school that day, so for sheets and giggles I decided to call to try to win. I ended up winning. The radio station asks me my address and says the tour bus will be in front of my house in an hour. I am nervous as shit, because the Spice Girls were about to be at my house, and I'm just here all alone. Mind you, I am the shyest person you will ever meet, and a tour bus full of the hottest girl band on the scene was about to be at my house. So the bus finally arrives. Only it wasn't really the Spice Girls. It was 4 old ladies who called themselves the Spice Girls, who were cooks. They ended up making scrambled eggs, pancakes, and toast for me on the tailgate of their bus. It was the strangest, weirdest, most awkward thing ever. And no one but me was there to witness it. I won an auction for a date with a seagull. I was, still am, married, but I was a big fan of her chosen charity. Met her backstage after the auction with my wife in tow, who was adamant that I go on this date. She thought it was hilarious. Talked to the very nice cheerleader and we all had a good laugh at the awkwardness while agreeing to go to the Evergreen Aviation Museum since I love aviation, and have dinner. Turned out to be a very fun day. She was very interested in the planes and history, and I was more than happy to spew nerd knowledge about all the displays. Had a wonderful dinner with lots of small talk and laughs before calling it a night. We kept in touch, she got married, had kids, and our families try to visit one another 1-2 times a year. They are our best friends. So, I'd say it worked out really well. Edit, added a link to what a seagull is. Edit 2, since my username seems to be a popular topic. Creep was my military calcin. It's chosen for you and usually for doing something stupid. I had this happen once quite by accident. It was in 1987 and I was hanging out with a friend at her place. We were listening to the radio and the DJ came on saying he had tickets to a concert. I called and damned if I didn't win. The concert was the next weekend. They said they were doing a remote out of the Hard Rock Cafe that day and that I could come get the tickets there. Okay, cool, we'll get the tickets, grab lunch and then he'll sometime till the concert starts. We head down there at the appointed time. Go and tell them why we are there and they lead us off to a side dining room and sit us down. They say we get lunch too and hand us a menu. As we are ordering, other people come and sit down at the table with us. They look like typical 80s headbangers, then I realize they have British accents. I do a double take and think, damn, that guy looks like Joe Elliott. I glance around the table and seeing Rick Allen, confirmed it. I'm sitting at a table with ducking Def Leppard. They were pleasant, although really tired, maybe hungover. They didn't act aloof or like they were being taxed by doing it and were actively conversing with a couple of starstruck teenagers. Overall, it was pretty cool. They gave us vinyl albums and autographed them, gave us shirts and all sorts of other stuff. Definitely a good memory. Overall, it was a great experience. When I was 12 I won a contest to play video games with Linkin Park before a concert of theirs. There were these video game buses set up at the venue that I was asked to wait outside of while security brought the band out. The band ended up only being Rob, the drummer, and my brother-in-law, and I just stood outside the bus and talked to him for like 10 minutes before he left. I don't know if this quite counts, but in 6th grade I won a science competition called D-Submission and my group got a trip to DC. Our group's mentor was Arthur Fry, the guy who invented the post-it note. I was ducking thrilled and chatted with him non-stop the entire trip, and he couldn't have been more happy about having a bunch of kids hanging on to his every word about science. Flash forward 10 years and I got started as a reporter covering the Patent and Trademark Office in Alexandria. I'm at a gala there for inventors and I ran into Arthur Fry. It's been 10 years, so there's no way he remembers us, but I come up to him anyway and start talking about e-submission. Not only does he remember us, he remembers the project we presented. I was so thrilled. I won a contest when I was younger, like 14, to fly to New York and meet Mark Ecko. I was this skinny Midwest white girl meeting a clothing designer for street, urban styles. I mean, me and my dad look so out of place. But he was the chillest dude. He showed us around the office, gave us food, let us sign some skateboards and walls. He had me do a photo shoot in his kids' line. We even went shopping in Manhattan with him and he bought me like $500 worth of brand name clothes. When we were out shopping he had a photographer with us and a personal shopper. People on the street were like, who is she, because they thought I was famous. Lol. He was the chillest dude and didn't mind at all that we were there. He was doing a collaboration with 50 Cent and let me meet him and take a photo. It was such a weird experience, and the only reason I won was because my dad entered tons of random contests and won a lot. But this was definitely the biggest he ever won. I love getting to tell people I've met 50 Cent. They never believe me. I won one of those ride with a professional snowboarder contests off of the website CCS. I had no idea that people won those things for real, so I was pretty stoked. Apparently I was one of about a couple thousand that entered to win the contest. I was able to take a friend, so I brought my cousin with me to fly out to Los Angeles to go snowboarding. We landed at LAX and one of the reps picked us up from the airport. He took us all the way to a place called MT High Resort, which was just a ghetto ski slope full of man-made snow. Not gonna lie, I loved its scatter park feel. The professional snowboarder that I got to ride with was named Stevie Bell. He was a class act, totally genuine dude. Didn't feel like he was forcing himself to be nice, just felt like it was hanging out with one of the homies. 10/10 would do it again. Kind of related. In the 90s, my sister tried calling, at least 100 times, into a radio station to win tickets to meet the Backstreet Boys and was listening to the radio simultaneously to see if they had a winner yet. Unfortunately, they announced the winner, not my sis, but their voice sounded familiar. Then she realized it was her best friend on the radio. I don't like the Backstreet Boys, I just won for my best friend. So in the end, my sister did kind of win and got to hang out with fangirl over the Backstreet Boys. I will forever be jealous. Edit. They are still best friends after 20 years. And my sister, being obsessed with AJ, grabbed his jacket and he looked at her tween self like, then they played some songs and amp. That was that. I was friends with a girl and her brother when I was younger. Their mom suddenly died of cancer while they were still young. A short story contest came up at school that was nationwide and amp. The prize was to visit the Harry Potter set in Europe and meet J.K. Rowling herself, along with some cast members. The prompt was something along the lines of, if anything from the wizarding world of Harry Potter could come true, what would you like it to be and why? To cope with the pain of her mother passing, my friend ended up writing an essay on how she would like a potion that could bring her mom back or just be able to see her and speak to her again. Weeks passed and she got the news that she, out of thousands of entries, won the contest. She got everything they said she would win: the tour and meet and greets. I remember showing us pictures when she got back of the whole experience and how truly kind everybody was. Only moderately related, but fun nonetheless. A friend of mine came to DC for Obama's inauguration in 09. He's standing outside and looks around just before it starts, and notices the guy next to him is Edward Norton. He doesn't say anything because he didn't want to be that guy who ruined the experience for him. But a few seconds later some other people start screaming and making a scene. At this point my friend has stepped over and he just bursts a grin and says something like, "Yo, Ron, you got a couple more idiots thinking you're that actor." The fans hushed thinking he was a doppelganger, and my friend got to hang out with Norton after that. I'm going to be so late to this and it's sort of an answer to this question. Throw away because I don't want my normal submates to focus on this. In 2005 I was in my last year of medical school at the University of Arizona when Hurricane Katrina hit. In the aftermath a bunch of us got permission from the med school dean to head down and help the real doctors. There were so many of us that we had a lottery system. I think UOF4 had a grant or donation to pay for 5/6 of us and basically the whole class volunteered. Well, I got picked and went. It was hard, sad and grueling work. On the second or third day this new guy showed to more of the grunt work in our little section. Trash pickup, food delivery and handout, etc. I didn't recognize him at first, but after a minute the place was abuzz with the news that Brad Pitt was working with us, and sure enough it was him. He absolutely worked his ass off too, and after the first day the shock wore off. It became no big deal. On many occasions over the next few days Brad Pitt emptied out my trash cans, got me clean linens and even lunch. Those military pre-made meals is what we ate. He could not have been more down to earth or nicer or more accommodating, and he never once asked for special treatment. He even sort of learned my name and called me Doc K. As you can imagine, the patient just glowed upon seeing him, and he was always gracious and friendly and took what time he could to hang out with all of us. To this day, I've never seen that he sought or received any praise or notoriety for what he did. Contrast that to the other guy who had photo ops done of him standing in a canoe with a shotgun plastered all over the media. He left very unannounced, and we were told it was because he didn't want fanfare and his departure to distract from what we were doing. Still to this day one of the most memorable experiences of my life, and I will always have a tremendous respect for him. Edit. Sorry for the atrocious grammar. I'm laying in bed on my iPad excited to get this out before my story is even more buried. Fairly low on the celebrity totem pole, but when I was in Little League, I won an opportunity to have lunch with one of the ball players for the farm team for the local MLB club. I was sorta put on the spot, and I think 9 or 10, for picking the actual player, so I picked more or less at random based on the only guy whose name I can remember. Think he played second base or shortstop. Not important. Anyway, the lunch itself, from what I can recall, the lunch was pretty pleasant, not any of the awkwardness that those sort of situations may lead to. But then again, I was 9, so who knows? The part that was most special to me came afterwards. I went to a number of home games for that minor league team throughout that season, and we usually had bleacher tickets near their dugout. Every time he was playing, he'd always spot me, come over and say hi, give me a signed ball, that sort of thing. It was pretty neat that it wasn't some sort of one and done oh god contractual obligations kind of things, or at least it didn't feel that way. Never went terribly far with baseball, but I think that experience was one of the reasons I still have an abiding affection for the sport and love watching my local team. Won a meet and greet with Lenny Kravitz backstage, just prior to one of his Australian concerts was awesome. Tour manager came and got us just after the Cranberries had finished their set and took us backstage where we waited beside a whole heap of their road cases and also just outside the Wolf Den, which was Wolf Mother's backstage dressing room. The Wolf Mother guys kept us entertained as they regularly paced back and forward to the Wolf Den in various states of drug-induced dishevelment. When Lenny appeared from his backstage room, he seemed to have the relaxed demeanor of someone that just had 10 Valium. Pretty sure he had been meditating or something, though there was a woman who I assume was his makeup artist too. Guy was shorter than I anticipated and smelled really exotic. Was super friendly with us, posed for photos, spoke to us and was one of the most humble, laid-back people I ever met. He then walked on stage and held it. Got to meet Flav at a private party. He was going to MC the night for a small group of about 10 of us. If you've seen him on TV you get the impression that he plays the part of an ignorant douchebag, but that maybe in real life he's more real and that was all just a show for the MTV cameras, etc. Nope. He really is that big of a dumb jerk. Maybe he was drunk, high, or some combination thereof, but the guy just seemed to be completely on another planet. Couldn't even make sentences or coherent thought. And he was getting paid for the event, so you'd think a musical performer would be in full game mode just like a concert. Instead, he was like the ghetto rapper version of your weird uncle who sits on the porch drinking Old Milwaukee and yelling at squirrels. Do backstage passes count? I was the 9th caller and got to meet Toby Keith. Totally different than what you would expect. He got tired of me fawning over him with questions from 20 years ago. Is it true your demo tape had 4 future #1 hits on it? And he ripped into me. I want to talk about you. He rolled his eyes when I told him I had been certified gold more than him. I won a radio contest in Europe back in 1994 to meet Nirvana at their last concert. I did not care for Dave or Christ, though they were super nice. I was annoyed that Kurt did not make himself available until after the show. He invited me and my friend into his staging room and apologized for being a big dig and not meeting us earlier. He was very cool, but I could totally tell this guy was burned and stressed out. I won a radio contest to meet Katy Perry at her Six Flags concert in San Antonio, TX. Clearly back in her early days. She signed a poster, took a pic with me, and complimented my dress. In person she looks exactly how she does on TV. And yes, dude's real. Edit, I'm a dumb teat who couldn't words. In about 2008/2009, my girlfriend won a competition to have Christmas dinner with the Blackout, a Welsh rock band. So the band and about 8 16-17-year-olds went to Nando's a few days after Christmas, hung out backstage with the band, got to see the band play that night and got some free merch. All in all, it was a pretty good night. The singer tried to cause a rift between me and my vegetarian girlfriend in the restaurant. He also bet me one whole Great British pound to douse my food in the extra hot sauce, which I did. Never got the pound though. It got weird when we were backstage with them. They basically ignored us until they decided it would be totally acceptable to show these underage kids stuff like to girls 1 Cup and Pain Olympics. They also asked what everyone's favorite band was and then spent 10 minutes telling me reasons my favorite were assholes. Weird night, would do it again. Edit, there was nothing cheeky about the Nando's. Well, I didn't win a sweepstakes or anything like that, but I did get to hang out with Snoop Dogg. I was front row for his concert at a festival, and at the end of his set, he started whispering to the security guards and pointing to me. Next thing you know, this random girl and I are being pulled over the barrier and taken backstage to hang with Snoop and his entourage. The level of excitement and disbelief I felt was unreal. The guards led me and this other girl to a van to ride back to his campsite with his entourage. That's where things got a little weird. The one guy who is featured in a couple of his songs, goes by Corrupt Gotti or something like that, starts hitting on me and saying very suggestive things. I was 20 at the time and had zero interest in getting with this guy. So when we arrived at Snoop's tent, I felt so relieved. I walked in and there was Snoop just standing there, all smiles with a blunt the size of a toilet paper roll in his hand. It took everything in me not to freak out. We talked for a couple minutes. He asked me where I went to college and whatnot. Then I got the gonads to ask him if he could take a picture with me, stating that nobody would believe this was actually happening to me. He said, "Sure baby girl," and we took 2 separate pictures, one with him casually posing with me, the next with him taking a drag of the blunt. It was as epic as it sounds. He passed me the massive blunt directly after. I took one hit and felt the most high I've ever been in my entire life. Literally could not stop coughing. Meanwhile the other girl was holding in her cough fine. Snoop passed it to me again and I had to reject because of how high I was. Fast forward 15 minutes later and the security guards kick us out. As I'm on my way out of his campsite, Corrupt follows me, gives me him and Snoop's number, and invites me to the local casino for a night of some fun. I ended up politely rejecting and that was that. Got high off of shrooms a few months later and texted Snoop's number. He actually responded and tried to FaceTime me. When I answered, all I could see was his eyeball creeping in the corner and a finely rolled blunt in the camera frame. Unfortunately and predictably, the number has since been changed. I texted it this past March to jokingly invite him to my 21st birthday, but it never went through. Edit, spelling. Won a contest to meet Britney Spears, don't laugh, and inadvertently wound up being on stage with her. It was a contest to get front row seats and I didn't realize at the time that the winners would end up actually being part of the show. It was all very pleasant. Both she and her team were totally professional and couldn't have been friendlier. I was notified via email about 3 weeks before the show about my winning the contest, and the coordinator provided me with all the details I would need when the date came. I had to get to the venue a little early and meet with her security team and sign legal documents etc etc. Say I wouldn't sue them if I fell on stage and all that jazz. A nice added surprise was that one of her handlers, her fiancé at the time, ended up taking me backstage to meet her, where she signed a tour book and we chatted for a few minutes, sort of a meet and greet type deal, but as far as I know it wasn't part of the prize package. Showtime came, we watched from the front row, I did my little number with her, it was a little lap dance that she gave me during a song, and that was that. Had a great time. As a PS, her fiancé mentioned above was super chill and took pictures on his phone for me since mine was confiscated at the gate. Couldn't have been nicer. Overall I have nothing but great things to say about the experience.